A kid, quietly folding paper cranes in the back of a noisy cafeteria, just got a bigger head start in life than the class president. No, not some magical talent or genius IQ. Something far sneakier and much more powerful. Because what nobody tells you is, the rarest hobbies quietly rewire your psychology, giving you an edge you can't buy, fake, or cram for. But here's the catch. The real advantage almost never comes from the skill itself. Instead, it's what the hobby rewires in your mind, connections, habits, instincts, that flips the script. By the end of this video, you'll see why chasing rare hobbies for status is actually missing the real point, and how the oddest pastimes quietly build unfair advantages nobody can copy overnight. But first, picture this: a chess tournament in a dusty community hall. Everyone's watching the star player, but in the corner, a quiet girl sketches doodles between matches. Here's what most people miss. Mastering chess is impressive, but learning to draw trains your attention in a totally different way. Drawing hones observational skills, seeing what others overlook, noticing tiny details, patterns, and shifts. In psychology, this is called perceptual sharpening. It's the reason artists spot micro-expressions in faces that the rest of us miss. The twist? In real life, this advantage matters more than checkmating your rivals. Because the ability to read the room before anyone speaks can change careers, friendships, even entire life paths. But the weird part is, the girl never set out to gain social intelligence. Her hobby rewired her mind by accident. And she's not the only one. Now, let's talk about bird watchers. You know, the people with binoculars and notepads stalking ducks at dawn. The surface skill, identifying rare warblers. The real upgrade, hyperfocus and patience. In an age of dopamine scrolling, birdwatchers train their brains to delay gratification, an ability that predicts long-term success better than IQ. In study after study, people who practice patience, whether through meditation or hobbies, outperform impulsive peers in almost everything. But here's the kicker. Birdwatchers rarely realize they're building the same neural muscles CEOs and athletes pay coaches to develop. And this hidden rewiring shows up in the strangest places. Let's flip the script. What if your bod hobby actually makes you more social, not less? Take amateur lockpicking. Sounds solitary, maybe a little mischievous. But here's what's really happening. Lockpicking clubs teach trust and collaboration because the best pickers share techniques, not secrets. Why does that matter? Because collaboration around a shared obsession creates instant in-group trust, a social glue stronger than small talk. That trust spills over. Members become quicker to trust and be trusted in new teams, jobs, even new cities. And it's not just lockpicking. Any niche hobby with a guild, from tabletop RPGs to obscure music forums, rewires your social instincts. You learn to read group signals, negotiate unspoken rules, and build alliances, which most people only practice at work, far too late. So, the next time someone calls your hobby antisocial, realize you might be in the world's best social skills bootcamp. Let's get even weirder. Juggling. Yes, seriously. People assume it's just a circus trick, but neurologists have found that learning to juggle physically reshapes your brain, literally. In one study, just 3 months of juggling increased gray matter in areas linked to visual motor coordination. But the kicker? Most jugglers drop everything at first, over and over. They get used to failing publicly. And that's the hidden upgrade. Not dexterity, but resilience. Juggling rewires your response to mistakes, turning embarrassment into feedback instead of shame. In a world terrified of looking foolish, jugglers quietly build the one skill that lets you try, fail, and try again, while everyone else freezes. Now, let's talk about calligraphy. Not the most obvious power move, right? But here's what's really happening. Calligraphers build fine motor control, yes, but more importantly, they master the art of slow work. In a culture obsessed with speed, calligraphy fans wire their brains for deep focus and pride in process. They become less distractible, more attentive to detail, and better at tuning out the noise of daily life. That's not just a nice-to-have, In the modern attention economy, the ability to focus deeply is a superpower. And ironically, it makes you happier. Studies show the more absorbed you are in a task, the less anxious you feel, even hours later. So, while everyone else brags about hustle, calligraphers quietly wire their brains for contentment. Let's turn to a hobby that sounds totally useless: speedcubing. But watch what actually happens inside a speedcuber's mind: rapid pattern recognition, algorithmic thinking, and split-second decision-making. The twist? These upgrades transfer to real-life problem-solving, especially under pressure. Ever wonder why some people figure things out before anyone else? It's not IQ, it's mental rehearsal. Speedcubers wire their brains to see the hidden structure in chaos and calmly act while others freeze. But there's something even stranger happening behind all these examples. None of these hobbies are rare because they're expensive or exclusive. They're rare because they require you to embrace being a beginner. Most adults avoid that. We stick to what we know, where we look competent. The real unfair advantage? Willingness to look foolish, fail, and improve anyway. Because every time you start something new, you build a brain that adapts, learns, and grows faster than anyone coasting on talent. And here's the punchline: the most powerful rewiring happens after you fail, not when you succeed. So if you want an unfair advantage, don't just collect rare hobbies. Seek out the ones that humble you, frustrate you, even embarrass you. Because those are the hobbies that quietly build the neural hardware for every future win, without you even noticing. Let's ground this with a real story. Maya, a painfully shy teen, signs up for improv as a dare. She freezes, forgets her lines, cringes in front of strangers. But here's what happens next. Her brain learns to recover from blanking out, to riff on the spot, to trust her instincts. Within 6 months, she's not just funnier, she's braver in class debates, bolder with friends, and quicker to recover from any slip-up. The hobby didn't just teach her comedy. It rewired her for resilience, creativity, and courage. That's the real secret. Rare hobbies act like neural boot camps, prepping you for tougher life challenges. But the final twist is the most counterintuitive of all. It's not what hobby you pick, it's how you relate to it. If you obsess over winning at your hobby, you miss the rewiring. But if you embrace the awkwardness and stick with it, the advantages multiply. So, here's what most people get wrong. Chasing rare hobbies for status is a dead end. The real winners are the ones who use hobbies as a safe space to be bad at something on purpose. Because every awkward hobby session quietly builds the psychological wiring for resilience, patience, attention, and social confidence. And the best part? It's never too late to start. Your brain rewires at any age. So, what's the rarest hobby of all? Being brave enough to be a beginner. And here's the resolution to our opening loop. The kid folding paper cranes? They weren't building patience or dexterity. They were learning to quietly rewire their own mind. That's an edge you can't fake, steal, or buy. And it compounds every time you try something new. So next time you see someone absorbed in a strange hobby, remember, the real unfair advantage is invisible. And if you're ready to dive deeper into how habits secretly reshape your brain, the next video reveals the psychology of micro-habits and why most self-improvement advice gets it totally backwards.